Hung rushed Hoai Ca straight into the hospital, his breath quick and uneven. When the emergency room doors swung open, everyone froze. Hung's mother lay motionless on the bed, her face pale, her breaths so faint they seemed to hang by a single thread. The IV lines and the slow, steady beeping of the monitors made the whole room feel unbearably heavy. When she finally woke up, she saw Hoai Ca standing at the foot of the bed. Her tired eyes trembled, and for the first time, she didn't look away. Her voice was so weak, it was barely audible. "Girl, I was wrong. Everything you went through was because of my stubbornness." Hoai Ca stood there in shock. She once thought she would resent this woman forever, but now seeing Hung's aging mother lying between life and death, her heart softened. Could she forgive her? That answer would have to come from her heart. That morning, the road leading into the hospital was busier than usual. Ambulance sirens echoed under the pale gray sky, blending with the hurried footsteps of worried families. Every step Hoai Ca took felt like a stone pressing down on her chest. She walked so slowly that Hung had to stop, turn back, and gently take her hand. "You doing okay?" Hoai Ca nodded, but her heart was shaking. The moment she would have to face the woman who once turned her whole life upside down was getting closer. Hung held her small hand firmly, as if trying to give her some strength. "I'm here, you're not alone." That one sentence made her steps a little steadier. They walked through the large glass doors. The sharp smell of disinfectant hung in the air. The white hospital lights made everything look cold and emotionless. But what hit her hardest were the patients being pushed on stretchers, weak, exhausted, fragile. It brought back memories she had tried to bury. Back then, when she was pregnant with Tony, she sat alone in the emergency room, hands wrapped around her belly, terrified. It was Hung's mother, the very woman she was about to see today, who pushed her to the edge. The old pain tightened her chest. Hung noticed. He paused and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Hoai Ca, if you're not ready, we can go home." She took a deep breath and shook her head. "No, I want to face it today. I want to end the past." Hung looked at her for a long moment, then gave a soft smile. "Then let's go." They stopped in front of room 204. The steady beeping of the heart monitor echoed inside, mixed with faint voices and soft groans from the room next door. Hoai Ca froze. Her hands went cold. Hung knocked lightly. A nurse opened the door. "Are you the family of Mrs. Hung?" "She's more awake now." The nurse looked at Hoai Ca. "She's been saying your name all night." Hoai Ca's chest tightened. The room had only one bed, a small fan, and an IV stand humming softly. The air was thick with medicine time and exhaustion. Hung's mother lay there. Her hair was much grayer, her face sunken. Her eyes were half closed, like someone who had struggled through a long, painful night. At the sound of footsteps, she opened her eyes. That look, it was the same look that used to terrify Hoai Ca. But today, it was different. No harshness, no judgment, only weakness, regret, and waiting. She stared at Hoai Ca for a long time, her eyes trembling. "Hoai Ca, you're here." Her voice was raspy, weak, almost fading. Hoai Ca couldn't speak. Her throat tightened. Hung pulled a chair for her. He stood nearby, his eyes softening as he looked at his mother. His mother tried to lift her hand, but she was too weak. Hung had to help her rest it on the bed rail. She turned to Hoai Ca, tears filling her eyes. "For so many years, I lived in hatred. I thought I was right. I thought I was protecting my son." Her breathing grew heavy, but in the end, I'm the one who broke my own family. Her voice cracked. I hurt you. I hurt Tony. I hurt Hung. At Tony's name, her eyes reddened more. The day I saw the toys he bought for the boy. I knew he loved Tony, but I still chose to do something cruel to you. Hoai Ca bit her lips as tears fell. Hung's mother continued, voice trembling. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for treating you like an enemy. Sorry for forcing you to run out of the house. Sorry for those days you were pregnant and living in fear. She reached out her hand. Hoai Ca stared at it, the same hand that once haunted her. Now it was thin, fragile, trembling. She hesitated, then slowly placed her hand on top of it. Hung's mother broke down in tears. A moment later, when she had calmed a little, she said something that stunned both of them. I'm not just sick. The doctor says I need surgery, but the chances of recovering are low. Hung squeezed her hand, his voice shaking. Why didn't you tell me earlier? She gave a small, tired smile. You were away for work. I didn't want to worry you. I wasn't even sure I'd live long enough to see you again. She looked at Hoai Ca. That's why I wanted to see her first. Silence filled the room. Hung's mother held Hoai Ca's hand, using whatever little strength she had left. Hoai Ca, can you forgive me? That question stabbed right into old memories. Hoai Ca looked at the woman's hand, remembering her past, remembering Tony, remembering all the darkness. But she also saw the woman in front of her today, frail, defeated, not here to hurt her, but to seek forgiveness. Hoai Ca covered her face and cried. Hung watched, hurting for her, but he didn't dare interfere. After a long moment, she looked up. Her voice was quiet. I can't forget, but I'll try to forgive. Tears streamed down the older woman's cheeks. That's enough. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hung stood beside them, his hand shaking. He had lived his whole life caught between these two women. He looked at his mother once, strong, controlling. He looked at Hoai Ca, the girl who suffered because she loved him. And today, they were sitting together holding hands. Something he thought would never happen. His eyes filled with tears. Mom. Hoai Ca. Thank you. A nurse came in with a tray, plain porridge and warm water. His mother was too weak to feed herself. Hung stepped forward, but she shook her head. Let Hoai Ca feed me if she can. Hung glanced at Hoai Ca, unsure. She stayed silent for a moment. Then she nodded. She held the bowl blue on each spoonful and fed her slowly. The old woman trembled as she swallowed her eyes, never leaving Hoai Ca's face, trying to memorize it. The face she once rejected and hurt, yet now was the one caring for her. When the last spoonful was done, she whispered, Thank you. You really are the best thing that ever happened to Hung. Hoai Ca pressed her lips together, afraid she would cry again. When the nurse left, Hung's mother took a deep breath. Hoai Ca, there's one more thing. She looked straight at her. Back then, I investigated you. I knew you were an orphan. I knew you raised Tony alone. I saw how hard you worked just to survive. She closed her eyes, but instead of feeling sympathy, I despised you. Regret filled every word. I was scared. Scared you'd take Hung's love away. Scared you'd change him. Scared he'd choose you over me. She broke down. But I was wrong. I'm the one who hurt him the most. The pain inside Hoai Ca surged up. She stood abruptly and took a step back. I'm sorry, I need a moment. Hung immediately held her hand. You okay? She nodded, eyes red. I just can't breathe. She stepped into the hallway, leaning on the wall, breathing hard. Every word from earlier felt like a needle. Hung followed her and placed a hand on her shoulder. Hoai Ca, I'm sorry for everything you went through. She shook her head. It wasn't your fault. It's just seeing her brings everything back. He pulled her into his arms. I know. But today, you were braver than ever. She rested her head on his chest, whispering through tears. I don't know if I can truly forgive her. He held her tighter. You don't have to rush. Forgiveness takes time. The fact you didn't turn away, that's enough. Later, they went back inside. Hung's mother was lying quietly, breathing heavy, but her eyes brightened when she saw Hoai Ca return. Hoai Ca stepped closer and said softly, I can't forgive everything yet, but I'll try. For Hung, for Tony, and for myself. The older woman held her hand and smiled through tears. That's enough for me. In that moment, the three people once torn apart by pain, hatred, and misunderstanding sat together in a small white hospital room where life and death were only a wall apart. But for the first time, none of them were turning away. When they left the hospital, Hoai Ca's steps felt lighter. Not because the pain was gone, but because she had faced it. Hung squeezed her hand and whispered, Thank you. Hoai Ca looked at him with a soft smile. Thank you for being with me. Outside, a flock of sparrows flew across the sky. A soft breeze swept through like the past, finally loosening its grip and opening a new path for all three of them. The hospital hallway was strangely quiet that afternoon. Faint sunlight slipped through the long glass windows, falling onto the shiny floor in grayish streaks like an unfinished painting. Hoai Ca leaned back against the white wall, her hands gripping the hem of her shirt. Her heart was still in chaos after the conversation with Hung's mother. After a while, the door to the room opened softly. Hung stepped out, closing it gently, as if afraid the sound might startle his mother. When he looked up, Hoai Ca immediately noticed the change in his eyes. The toughness of a man who's been through a lot was gone. His usual calm was gone. All that was left was a quiet pain and guilt so heavy it was suffocating. Seeing his eyes like that, her heart sank. Hung walked toward her but stopped a few steps away like he himself needed some space to breathe. He lowered his head, his voice low and hoarse. Hoai Ca. My mom is weaker than I thought. She looked at him, her gaze softening. I know. Hung took a deep breath as if trying to push back everything swelling in his chest. The doctor said, she needs emergency surgery, but the chances of success. He didn't finish, but Hoai Ca understood. She took a step closer and gently placed her hand on his arm. I'm here. I'm listening. Say the rest. Hung looked at her with helpless eyes. They said, if they operate, there's a high risk of complications. If they don't, she'll just keep getting weaker. Hoai Ca gave his arm a light squeeze. That's not your fault. Hung let out a small laugh, but it tasted more like tears. Not my fault I'm her son. And I knew nothing. She was this sick, and I left her alone. Hoai Ca shook her head. No one could have known this would happen. She hid it because she didn't want to worry you. But she didn't tell me. His voice cracked. She didn't tell you either. What she said next made him look up. But she still wanted to see me first. That means she's already starting to change. Hung looked at her like he was hearing something he had never allowed himself to think. His eyes slowly softened. Hoai Ca stepped even closer, close enough that her breath brushed lightly against his chest. You always carry everything by yourself. You hold it all in so much that you forget. You're someone who can be hurt too. Hung stayed silent. She lifted her hand and gently smoothed the deep line between his brows. You don't have to act strong in front of me. If you're tired, if you're hurting, if you're upset, I get it. He closed his eyes for a few seconds, as if trying to hold onto the quiet comfort of her touch. Back then. He opened his eyes again, his voice calm but deep, like he was opening a door inside himself that almost no one had seen. When my dad died, my mom completely lost her direction. Everything fell on me. I thought if I did everything right, she'd finally be okay. But the more I tried, the further away she got. Her chest tightened as she listened. I wanted to take her for checkups regularly, but she always refused, always said she was fine. I believed her. And now, Hung. She cut him off gently and looked straight into his eyes. You did everything you could. No one can control illness. No one can predict when it hits. He stared at her for a long time like a lost child who had finally been shown the way. She continued, You're not a superhero. You're just a son. And a son can't stop every bad thing from happening. He couldn't hold it in anymore. Hung stepped forward and pulled her into a tight hug. His arms wrapped around her as if letting go would make him collapse. She stayed in his embrace, her arms around him, one hand gently patting his back, like she was trying to ease all the years he'd been holding everything in. I'm scared of losing my mom. His voice shook like he was confessing something he'd never dared say out loud. I know. I'm scared that if something happens, I won't have time to make things right. I know. I'm scared she'll leave while there's still distance between us. I know, Hung. She gently pulled away just enough to lift his face so he would look at her. But you still have a chance to fix it. She's alive. She needs you. You're not too late. He looked at her, eyes red, but not lost anymore. You really believe that? She nodded. I do, and I'll be with you. They sat down on the long bench along the hallway. Hoai Ca sat beside him. He held her hand, but this time it wasn't a desperate grip. It was a search for calm. He asked, What about you? Seeing my mom. It couldn't have been easy. She pressed her lips together. It wasn't. She didn't sugarcoat it. Seeing her brought everything back. I used to be really afraid of her, Hung. He squeezed her hand tighter. I'm sorry. It's not your fault. She shook her head lightly. But seeing her that weak, I realized time has changed a lot of things. He stayed quiet. She went on, her voice small but clear. I haven't forgotten what happened, but I don't want to live in resentment forever either. I want Tony to have a real family. I want you and me to have a peaceful life. Hung looked at her with pride, understanding, and gratitude in his eyes. You're the reason I'm stronger, Hoai Ca. She smiled softly. And you're the reason I dare to face my past. After a moment, she turned to him, her voice barely above a whisper, but steady like a promise. Whether your mom gets better or not, I'll stay with you. I'm not going anywhere. He stared at her so moved his hands started to shake. Hoai Ca. Do you mean that? She nodded. I'm here, and I'll keep being here. No matter what happens to your mom, I'm not leaving this family. That was exactly what he needed to hear. He leaned his forehead against hers and let out a long breath like he was finally putting down a weight he'd carried for years. After a few quiet minutes, he said, I'm going to sign the consent form for her surgery. She squeezed his hand. I support your decision. You think she'll pull through? Hoai Ca met his eyes. I don't know, but I believe she's trying. For you. Hung nodded, and for the first time there was a bit of steadiness in his gaze. She stood up. He stood up too. He wrapped his arms around her from behind and rested his chin on her shoulder, his voice rough but gentle. "Thank you. Without you, I think I would have fallen apart." She placed her hand over his and smiled softly. "You don't have to be strong alone. We're a family, remember?" In that moment, in the cold hospital hallway, with machines beeping in the distance and footsteps echoing far away, the two of them found each other more clearly than ever. They weren't just lovers. They weren't just Tony's parents. They were two people who had been deeply wounded and were now healing together. And behind that hospital room door, a mother was waiting for them, not with hatred anymore, but with the hope of being forgiven.